Today, we are going to come to a certain conclusion, especially today and the next two Bible studies. We'll come to certain different conclusions about the law. I rather share with us that God had nothing to do with the law. I explained to us that was Moses when he met with Jethro, that Jethro observed that the approach he was using to govern the people was unitary system of government, in which it was the Alpha and the Omega, and everybody had to come to him with their problems, with their issues. And the issues range from social to religious to marital to material. It was too much, especially for somebody that is leading a group of people that are into their millions. And so Jethro told him that he should devise a better means by which he could govern the people so that he would have rest. I remember sharing with us also, even as a fellowship leader, at the beginning when I was doing most of the things alone, I would be on the phone from morning till night, ministering. When I'm driving, phone calls were coming. I realized that there was no way I could sustain that kind of number personally. So when I began to share the numbers with PSSBC ministers at the time, and that was what led to us having a firebrand. That was what led to COZ. That was what led to healing school. Because we look at the category of each person's issue, and then we can look at how to deliberately find those who can handle it. That was what also led to marital blissful home fellowship. So because when people call, they will come with the myriad issues. And you as a leader must find a way to ensure that they are attended to on time, promptly, and that those who will attend to them are qualified to attend to them. So if we are going to talk about marriage, we are not going to put there those who do not know much about marriage or who are not married yet. You have to find that are suitable to handle marital issues. You have to find those who are suitable to handle prayer meetings. You have to find those who are mature enough that when people confide in them, they will take that confidence into prayer and they will not blab about it. So all those things are part of how you choose judges. That was the process Moses was also following here. How to choose those to whom he can delegate authority for rulership. That was all that the law was about. So you see that from that place where the idea was conceptualized in Genesis 18, in Genesis 19, we saw that Moses decided that he was going to go up. Genesis 20, he went up, he was able to get the law, and now we are getting to the part where he is now going to hand over the law to the leaders. Its purpose here will be to hand it over to the judges, to choose judges, and then to hand over the law to them and tell them that, okay, this is what I want you to do with the law right now. This is what I have in mind. You remember later in the New Testament when the early church started also, that this same principle worked. When in the book of Acts chapter 6, thereabouts, people started complaining that there were not enough food, they were not being taken care of. They had to choose deacons. And they said the deacons would serve tables, would see to the welfare of the people and ensure that everybody gets justice. So the principle of leadership is the same. But one thing you must note in all this, okay, I must apologize profoundly for the network. Sorry. Nigeria network is good. Today just happened to be like this. Anyway, so we're talking about Exodus 21, the purpose of the law. The purpose of the law was to raise fellow men who will be guided by tenets, morals, and laws in order for them to give justice appropriately. That was the purpose. The law had nothing to do with God. And if you doubt me again, please read again from Genesis 8. Down to 21. You will see that everything that Jethro told Moses to do, that was what Moses was implementing. Jethro told him that he must choose a leader of 5, 10, 50, 20, 50, 100, and then he must give them the law so that they can govern the people they are leading. Moses therefore went and did a plan. And after doing the plan, he said that, okay, I'm going to separate the people so that they will know, they will have magistrate courts, they will have high courts, they will have state courts, they will have federal courts, they will then have appellate courts, then they will have Supreme Court. I will be the Supreme Court. But they will start from the very lowest level. And no matter how difficult it is only the super difficulties that will get to me. That was structure. Any one of us who has a company must have hierarchy. We must have structure, a way of handling problems. This was all that Moses was trying to do when he founded the law. God had no hand in it. And I like that to all of us to read that and know it. Because if you look at it, you will see everything step by step, that it was all about making rulership easy for Moses, making governance easy, ensuring that the citizens of the country obey and respected each other, and then giving them rules and regulations by which to live by. I explained last week that these laws are so universal. It is the same law you have in America that you have in Nigeria, that you have in the Jewish book. God is not like that. God does not have to repeat to us the things that are innate in us. Before white people came to Africa at all with religion, with Christianity, Nigerians, no matter the tribe, they had issues with stealing, they had issues with lying, they had issues with sleeping with each other's wife, they had issues with converting people's property, they had issues with it. These things are fundamental, traditional, and innate in all human beings. Every culture and civilization, if you read all of them pre-colonial Africa, if you read even the Igbo culture, read the Bibio, read the Gbomina, read everybody, you will see that that was why they have kings. That was how many of them had prisons. Many of them already had soldiers, they had police people, they had people that were enforcing laws and law and order in society. And there was adequate punishment for anything that you do that is not part of their custom, morals, and tenets. So how come then that God has to be the one to now start writing laws for those people that already in their hearts, they know what is right and they know what is wrong? So that is not how God has revealed himself. It is not consistent in God's character towards us. In fact, when God met Moses the first time in the book of Exodus 3, God didn't give him rules and regulations by which to deal with him. God started the relationship with him immediately, because between us and God, what we have is a relationship. Between us and the law, what we have is respect for our neighbors, mutual respect for our neighbors' rights. And if any one of us will just respect this for our neighbor and do what is said by this for our neighbor, then the law will be useless. The law is used to those who don't steal, to those who don't lie, to those who don't cheat. Of what use is the law? The people that are always looking at the law are those who are going to break it, because they are programmed to break it, so they will. But for those who live above it, that's what Paul was talking about the law, and he said that shall we continue in sin? I said that grace should abide. He said, God forbid, that we that had been dead to sin, we no longer yield our body to such. So we must all know that. No, when people are saying, when they are praying and they are saying, Lord, I obey your law, they want to copy Moses in Psalm 119. David in Psalm 119, they didn't understand what David was talking about. You see, because in the Old Testament, the word law and the word were often interchangeable. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth. So you would think that every day when Joshua wakes up, he will just be reciting the law. No, he will be reciting the word of God. It will be Lalia. It is the word. Till today, if when we are doing a declaration, are doing our mission, when you are making your confession, if it is from the Old Testament, they will say you are saying the law. Why? Because they called, or the whole body of everything Moses wrote down was called the law. But even if you look at the books of Moses, you will see that it is not only the law that is there. There's also in the book of Numbers the account of his encounters with God, this discussion with God, his encounters with the Sanhedrins, his encounters with Miriam, with Mori, with Data Korah, Abiram, with the daughters of Zelophehad. There are so many things apart from the law in the Pentateuch, in the 5 books of Moses, but they call it generally the law because they figured that the most important aspect of all the things that Moses wrote was the law. And when Jesus talked about Moses, Jesus Christ said the law came by Moses, but grace and truth came by Jesus Christ. So Jesus also affirmed that what Moses basically brought was the law. But the law was not in any way helpful to God. How did the law help God? How did the law help people to serve God? What it did was that it made people aware of their sin. It made people hypocrites. It made them self-centered. It made them whitewashed sepulchres. It made them liars and cheats. It made them proud and vain. So when Jesus came, they didn't even recognize it. They didn't even recognize the Son of God because they are so much into the law that they couldn't see beyond it. They couldn't see anything outside of that law. The law was supposed to be an instrument to turn men's hearts away from sin to godliness. Unfortunately, what it did was the opposite. It turns men's hearts towards sin. The Bible says, for without the law, there shall be no sin. So basically, what he just came and said, all of you are sinners. So the law was the band of condemnation on every believer. It was the band, the power, the hold of condemnation on every believer. That's what the law is. And so there is no place in the New Testament under Jesus where you will see the apostles, Jesus himself saying, when you obey the law, you are pleasing God. Jesus never said that. Never ever. Apostle Paul never ever. In fact, if you go back to the book of Acts chapter 19, you will be shocked to read there that the Apostle Paul said to the people, to the church in Jerusalem, that why should people follow? Why should the new believers follow the law? That the law is not good for them. James himself spoke and said, even they that were born into the law, they've not been able to fulfill it. Why would they saddle somebody else with it? So the law had nothing to do with your faith. This is important. Because those who really depend on the law, they never grow spiritually. The law is a killer of every form of spirit. The law expects that you serve it, that you worship it the way it wants you to serve it without any holding back, which is a problem. Because it was not God that told Ezekiel to take a sword and then to cut his bed. Meanwhile, it is the same law God that said the children of Israel, said all the priests, when they want to barb their hair, they should never cut it the way pagans cut their own. They shouldn't use a sword to cut their bed and make it look unclean. God told them that according to the law. And yet God told Ezekiel, said, come, they are going to take the children of Israel into exile. So I want you to barb your bed, take half out of the half, divide it into 3, scatter one all over Israel, put one on your clothes. He was telling him all that, knowing that Ezekiel was going to do it, but it will contravene the law. That's my point. Because the law says priests shouldn't do that. And yet God said, my priests do it. So usually if Ezekiel did not know the voice of God, he will be saying that how can God contradict himself? How can the law say we shouldn't do something? And then God will say we should do it. It is because the law, God is not binding to the law, and he doesn't expect us to be bound to the law too. He expects us to have the liberty that he has so that he can give us fresh instructions, fresh assignments in time, and we'll be able to carry it out without the encumbrance of religion or the law. So you must know this. So for many of us who are go over the law, I fulfill God's law, you have really nothing. Jesus is the end of the law. He is the final coffin. He's the final nail on the coffin of the law. When Jesus left, the entirety of the body of law left. The law of God became written on the tablets of our hearts. We became filled with the Spirit of the Most High God, and we are now doing the work of the Father. There was nobody in the scriptures that the law encouraged or prompted to become a prophet, to become a teacher, to become an apostle. The law took away the creativity of everybody, took away the supernatural reality of everybody, took away the love of everybody, made people very serious, made people unnecessarily hungry without having the confidence to reach home and get help. The law has basically finished human race before Jesus came. And yet, nobody could, through the study of the law, have access to heaven. That is the ideal thing. You will know that at the end of all this, the book of the law in Exodus chapter 20, there was no promise of, if you follow the law diligently, then I will take you to heaven. It's not in the Bible. They came, they walked, they tried to please God, they followed the law, they did everything. And yet, they didn't have access to heaven because of it. You have to look at it. How come? How come they couldn't have access to heaven? How come that even when Jesus came, they were still searching and searching, and they've all done baptism of John, they've all done cleansing, all of them have tried as possible to be appearing at the temple and be reading it, and yet the supernatural did not happen. Nothing changed. Not one thing changed. So the law is not a source to the supernatural presence of God or to that of his angels. There is no record of anybody reading the law that an angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, hey, my fellow law reader, never ever. So you have to know what attracts the presence of angels into your reality. You have at all costs to do away with things that are of no value. And one of them is the knowledge of the law. And establishing the law as the harbinger, or the yardstick, rather, the yardstick of good behavior. That's terrible. Because you shouldn't know the law at all. You should be guided and governed by the Spirit. That in such a manner that everybody around you will know that when you speak, an oracle of God has spoken. So this is very key in all our Christian growth, that we understand the purpose of the law, why the law was given. The second thing about the law was that it established the different aspects of the life and times of the children of Israel. It covered their life from working when they wake up in the morning, how to treat animals, how to treat people, how to make amends when you are wrong. It addressed the issue of rape, dowry, value of a woman's virginity, idolatry, sorcery, treatment of surrounding people. Everything it had is all encompassing. It taught every aspect of life through. But the one thing the Lord did not do or promise was that when the Lord would link you to heavenly truths. No, the law will link you to salvation. Maybe when we were young, but not anymore. Not anymore. The law does not lead anybody to salvation, because the law itself is not a key to salvation. Grace and truth are the keys to salvation. Jesus Christ said it himself. In John chapter 5, Jesus said as God has given the Son to have life in himself. So Jesus has life in himself to give us, and we do not have to pay for anything by obeying any strict laws. It is not allowed. So it is important as a round off that we know the purpose for which the law was given. And in this particular chapter, the law, after Moses had written it, Moses then called all the leaders according to their families, and then he handed the law over to them. He showed them what the law meant, so that they, from that period onward, will be the one judging the people by themselves. But they will be the one that people will come and meet and say, in Yoruba language, they'll call people like that Magaji, that is the head of a household, that so that they can then know what is right towards fellow men, towards the king, towards their fellow believers, towards unbelievers, towards slaves, towards properties. The law was all encompassing. Moses taught every aspect of life through in writing the law. God is not a man of that many words. Even when you hear God speak, it is us that will tell the stories. God is just a God of, this is what I want, this is what it requires, get it done. I will give God the glory because He's getting things done for us daily by His power in the name of Jesus. Apologies again for the network that went away. I'm going to continue from Exodus 22 next week, Tuesday. If you are blessed by the class, I'd like you to shout glory.
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 Thank you, sir.
Glory.
Thank you.